December 19, 2002, Manhattan Supreme Court. Justice Charles J. Tejada is about to vacate 5 convictions. The 5 men sitting in that courtroom had been teenagers when they were arrested. They had spent between 6 and 13 years in prison. They had been labeled rapists by every newspaper in New York City. They had been called animals by people who had never met them. A full-page advertisement had run in 4 New York City newspapers, calling for their execution before a single trial had begun. Now a judge was about to tell them what the DNA had said from the beginning. They did not do it. Antron McCrae was 15. Yusuf Salam was 15. Raymond Santana was 14. Kevin Richardson was 14. Corey Wise was 16 and the oldest of the group. Because of his age, he was tried as an adult. He served 13 years in a federal prison, while the others served between 6 and 7 years in juvenile detention. They had all been home for years by the time that courtroom convened in December 2002. The vacating of their convictions did not give them back the years they had lost. It did not give them back their teenage years. It did not undo what had been done to them in those interrogation rooms in April 1989. What it did was confirm what the science had said from the very first day. The DNA excluded all 5 of them before the trial ever started. This video is about the specific decisions made by specific people who had the evidence in front of them and chose to proceed anyway. And it is about what the real attacker did with the time those decisions gave him. And this is where they got it wrong. Act 2. The victim. Before we talk about what the system did, we need to talk about who it was supposed to protect. Tricia Miley was 28 years old. She was an investment banker at Solomon Brothers. On the evening of April 19, 1989, she went for a run in Central Park after work. It was something she did regularly. The park was familiar to her. She knew the path. She was found at approximately 1:30 in the morning by 2 men passing through the park. She was lying in a ravine. She had been beaten so severely that she was nearly unrecognizable. Her skull had been fractured. She had lost approximately 75% of her blood. Doctors said they did not expect her to survive. She survived. She remained in a coma for 12 days. When she regained consciousness, she had no memory of the attack. She has never recovered that memory. Tricia Miley spent months in rehabilitation. She relearned basic functions. She rebuilt her life with extraordinary determination. She later became a public speaker and an advocate for survivors of violent crime. She wrote a book about her experience and her recovery. She did not know for 13 years who had actually attacked her. Now we need to talk about 5 other people the system was supposed to protect. Kevin Richardson was 14 years old. Raymond Santana was 14. He was a quiet kid from Harlem. Antron McCrae was 15. His father would later sit in the interrogation room and tell his son to confess to something he did not do, because he believed it was the only way to get him home that night. Yusuf Salam was 15. His mother arrived at the precinct and was not allowed into the room where her son was being questioned. Corey Wise was 16. He had a learning disability and a hearing impairment. He came to the precinct voluntarily because his friend Yusuf Salam had been taken in, and he did not want his friend to be alone. He spent 13 years in prison for that decision. Act 3. The crime. April 19, 1989 was a chaotic night in Central Park. A large group of teenagers, estimated at somewhere between 30 and 40 people, had gathered in the park that evening. There were reports of minor incidents involving the group. The NYPD responded and began rounding up teenagers from the park. Kevin, Raymond, Antron, Yusuf, and Corey were among those brought in. They were brought in connection with the other incidents. Tricia Miley was found at 1:30 in the morning. She was alive, but barely. The case immediately became the most high-profile crime in New York City. The pressure to solve it was immediate and enormous. The city was already a pressure cooker. Crime rates in New York in 1989 were at historic highs. Fear was constant and specific and racial in ways that nobody in authority wanted to examine directly. The 5 teenagers already in custody became the answer the city was looking for. The real attacker was a 17-year-old named Matias Reyes. On the night police pulled teenagers out of the park, Matias Reyes walked home. Nobody was looking for him. Act 4. Why it stalled. This is the part of the story that requires the most attention. Because what happened was not the result of one bad decision. It was the result of a sequence of decisions made by multiple institutions across multiple months. Each decision built on the previous one. Each one made the next one easier to make. And this is where they got it wrong. The interrogations. Kevin Richardson was the first one brought into an interrogation room. He was 14. He had no lawyer. He had no parent present. He had no food and no sleep. Detectives told him his friends had already confessed. Raymond Santana went next. Same room, same tactics, same lies. Your friends already confessed. Cooperate and you can go home. Robert McRae sat across from his 15-year-old son, Antron, and told him to tell the detectives what they wanted to hear. Yusuf Salam refused to sign anything. Detectives told his mother he was not there. He was in a room 15 feet away. Corey Wise was 16 and legally an adult. He was interrogated for hours. He eventually gave a statement. Every tactic used was completely legal in New York in 1989. Lying to suspects was legal. Denying access to parents was legal. Keeping a teenager awake for 30 hours before asking him to sign a statement was legal. The confessions that resulted contradicted each other on almost every specific detail. They contradicted the physical evidence. They contradicted the timeline of the attack. The detectives had all of this information. They proceeded anyway. Before the trials began, the prosecution had the results of forensic testing. The DNA excluded all 5 defendants completely. There was not a single piece of biological evidence connecting any of them to the attack. They went to trial anyway. Lead prosecutor Elizabeth Lederer told the jury that hair consistent with one of the defendants had been found. That claim was later proven to be false. The prosecution's case rested almost entirely on the confessions. The jury convicted all 5. The media coverage was catastrophic. Donald Trump took out full-page advertisements in 4 New York City newspapers. He called for the return of the death penalty. He named the 5 teenagers before a single trial. The city had already decided. Kevin, Raymond, Antron, and Yusuf received sentences of between 5 and 10 years. Corey Wise was tried as an adult. He received a sentence of 15 years. He was a teenager with a learning disability in an adult maximum security prison. While all 5 were inside, Matias Reyes was outside, and he was not finished. He raped 5 more women between 1989 and 1991. He murdered one of them. Her name was Lourdes Gonzalez. She was pregnant. He was eventually arrested and convicted in 1991. The system did not just fail them. It gave the right person the time to kill someone else. For 13 years, not one institution in the chain looked at what the science had said from the beginning and acted on it. Act 5. The breakthrough. Corey Wise was the one who made it possible. In 2001, Corey Wise was transferred to Auburn Correctional Facility. Matias Reyes was also incarcerated there. The 2 men knew each other from the neighborhood. Reyes later said that seeing Corey Wise in prison, knowing what he himself had done, became something he could not continue to carry. In 2002, Matias Reyes confessed. The Manhattan DA's office reopened the investigation. DNA testing was conducted. The semen matched Matias Reyes. It matched only Matias Reyes. The 5 teenagers were excluded completely, exactly as the original testing had shown 13 years earlier. On December 19, 2002, Justice Charles J. Tejada vacated all 5 convictions. The men who had been the Central Park 5 were now the exonerated 5. 4 of them had already served their full sentences. Corey Wise walked out of prison at 29 years old. In 2014, the city settled for $41 million. The settlement came with no admission of wrongdoing. Following the release of Ava DuVernay's miniseries, Linda Fairstein resigned from boards. Elizabeth Lederer resigned from Columbia Law School. Act 6. The close. Corey Wise was 16 when he walked into that precinct. He was 29 when he walked out. He has said that anger would consume him. He has become a supporter of the Innocence Project. Raymond Santana tweeted at filmmaker Ava DuVernay and suggested she tell their story. That tweet led to When They See Us. The series reached more viewers than almost any documentary in Netflix history. Yusuf Salam was elected to the New York City Council in 2023. He represents the Harlem district where he grew up. The same community the system decided in 1989 was expendable. Kevin Richardson has become an advocate for juvenile justice reform. Antron McCrae has spoken about his father, about understanding now that his father was terrified and believed he was protecting his son, about the years it took to rebuild that relationship. Here is what this case actually is. 5 teenagers were arrested not because the evidence pointed to them, but because the city needed an answer. They were children in a system that decided their youth was a vulnerability. The DNA said they did not do it. Nobody in that chain made a mistake. They made choices. The system did not solve this case. One man's conscience did. 13 years too late. Yusef Salam, Antron McCrae, Raymond Santana, Kevin Richardson, Corey Wise. Justice served, 13 years later. Finally solved.